This coming Shabbat, it is the last day of the Passover festival, and the reading is from the text in Exodus discussing coming out of Egypt. And in chapter 13, verse 17, it starts with the Pharaoh, the Egyptian king, let the people go. But the main point is that earlier in chapter 12, and chapter 13 also, there are several times that the text is already telling us that they came out of Egypt. So why at this point of time the text is going a little bit back and relating to the point of time that the king, the Egyptian king, let the people go? And as a matter of fact, we can see that the demand to let the people go is repeated 6 times. Let my people go, let my people go. And 6 times it is mentioned in the text. And even the king himself, the Egyptian king, is talking about letting the people go. The first time is right after the plague of the frogs, and then after the last plague of the firstborn, the king there is twice to let the people go. So and as a matter of fact, we can see that there are two verbs relating to the the act of going out of slavery. One is to let the slave go, and one is to expel the person. So what's the difference between letting the people go and expelling the person? And if we go to Sarah and Abraham, we see the difference. Sarah saw her maid, and actually she saw Ishmael is bringing the idol worshipping into the house of Abraham. So she came to Abraham and she said, I would like you to expel her with her son. And Abraham was upset, but God told him, you should listen to her. So yes, so he moved, and in 4 verses later, Abraham, the text is telling us that Abraham did not expel Agar and her son, but he sent them away. Sent them away means that he released her from slavery and made her a free woman. So Sarah just wanted to get rid of her, but Abraham, if he were already to send her away, he wanted her to be free, and therefore he didn't expel her, but he sent her away. So sending the slave away is to release the slave from slavery and make the slave a free person. And sending away, or as it is being translated, let my people go, or let the people go. Okay? So let the people go is releasing the people from slavery, and expelling is getting rid of them, but they are still in the position of being slaves to the Egyptian king. So now you realize why the text, even though the text told us in chapter 12 several times, and even at the beginning of chapter 13, the text is telling us that they came out of Egypt, but the text wants to emphasize to us that they came out as free people, as the Egyptian king let them go. So they came out uh, of Egypt as free people. And as a matter of fact, the letting the slave go is being mentioned uh, in Exodus later on, the Hebrew slave, and it is also mentioned in Deuteronomy, where not only that the master needs to let the slave go free, and you can see, by the way, that in Deuteronomy, letting the slave go is letting the slave go free, because letting go means to be free. But it is mandated that the master should not let the slave go empty without anything, but he should give him uh, a lot to uh, to start his life as a free person. This is should remind us that the Israelites, when they came out of Egypt, they did asked the Egyptians to give them gifts, and this is thereafter mandated in Deuteronomy to give a slave who comes free out of slavery, to give him gifts. But the question is, if their demand was only to give them freedom, would it have been enough? And the answer is, it would not have been enough. Because if we read the text correctly, the people, if it's a mention at the beginning of Exodus, the people did not demand to come out of Egypt. They only complained on the harsh conditions, that they are slaves, and they wanted to get rid of the slavery, but nowhere did they ask to come out of Egypt. They did not. And at the burning bush, when the God is talking with Moses, the solution that God gave Moses is not only to let them go, but to bring them out of Egypt and bring them back to the land where the forefathers lived. So, and as a matter of fact, why it was important to bring them out of Egypt and transferring them to the land of Canaan, because that was the covenant with Abraham, the covenant of the splits, where God is telling Abraham that your descendants will be out of the land, not out of the land, but they will be in a land that is not theirs for 4 generations, and then they will come back to the land. Okay? So therefore, the reason that they were taken out of Egypt is not because they asked for it, but it is implementation of the covenant that is mentioned at the beginning of Genesis, that it is time for them to come out of Egypt. And as a matter of fact, we know that there were 4 generations in Egypt, because it is said that the um, grandchildren of Menashe, who was 2nd generation to Joseph, uh, uh, were the ones to enter the land. So there were 4 generations in Egypt, and after 4 generations, they came back to the land as it was mandated by the covenant mentioned in the beginning of Genesis. And now you realize why, even though the people did not want to come out of Egypt, but they were taken out of Egypt. And the solution that God is telling Moses, go and tell the king, let my people go. And as a matter of fact, it is says after the burning bush, it's a very interesting point, because Moses and Aaron gathered all the elders of the children of Israel, and Moses did all the signs in the sight of the people, And it is says that the people believed. But what about the elders of the children of Israel? The text doesn't say that they believed. It only says that the people believed. It is an interesting point. And later on, when Moses and Aaron and the elders went to talk with the king to demand, let my people go, the elders vanished. They didn't show up because later on, it's only Moses and Aaron who were there. It is a point. So we realized that the people did not really want to come out of Egypt. It's only because God remembered the covenant that they were to come out of Egypt. And now you realize uh, why the text is telling us that the text is telling us right after they came out of Egypt and they were before the sea, they quoted themselves as telling Moses, "Hello, we already told you, let us alone, that we will serve the Egyptians. We don't want to go into the desert." And it is an issue to go into the desert. Right? So they did not want to come out of Egypt. So now you realize that they needed to be expelled. And as a matter of fact, the text is telling us 3 times that and God is telling Moses, not only the king will let them go, but he will expel them. And the expulsion was to force them to come out of Egypt because they did not want to come out. So actually, although we celebrate coming out of Egypt, but the fact is that they were expelled out of Egypt. That's why it is said openly in the text, why do we eat matzah on the night they came out of Egypt? Because they were expelled. Gorshu mimitzrayim. They were expelled from Egypt and they didn't have enough time to bake the bread, and matzah takes less time to bake it. So therefore, they ate a matzah. So they were let go, but they also got expelled. So now we can come to deal with the question, who came out of Egypt? We know for a fact that it's well known that 2 components came out of Egypt. One is the children of Israel, and one is the multitudes. But there was another component that came out of Egypt that it is showing up in the text here and there. It is showing up. And right before the revelation of Mount Sinai, God is telling Moses, you should go and tell the people what I'm telling you and to prepare for the revelation. And it is saying, this is what you should say to the house of Jacob, and you should tell the children of Israel. That's the translation, say and tell, but that's in English. But the main point is, in Hebrew, to say, lomar, to say, that's regular, to say is true. But להגיד, and it is not the time now that I can show you all the proof and evidence. להגיד means to say something new that the listener does not know. And this is throughout the text all over, in the entire Tanakh, in the entire Bible. So now you realize that there were one more component, the knowledgeable people, which is the house of Jacob, and therefore they do not need to get any new information because they already knew. But the children of Israel didn't know, and therefore the information that was given to them was new information, and therefore the verb להגיד was for the children of Israel. And as a matter of fact, in the Hallel, in the book of Psalms, it is says, when Israel came out of Egypt, and the house of Jacob came from strange language. So, interesting point that people look at it as it is redundant, but it is not redundant because the following verse is telling you that it is not redundancy because it talks about Judah and Israel as uh, two distinct entities, and there were two distinct kingdoms. Judah was on the south and Israel was on the north after the split after King Solomon, and therefore two components came out of Egypt. Israel, that's the children of Israel, and the house of Jacob. So question, when did the house of Jacob start? And as a matter of fact, we need to go to end of Genesis, and we will see that there his father's house, meaning Jacob's house, is showing up towards the end of the book. And as a matter of fact, if you go to the last where it is. Oh, yes, in chapter 50, verse 8, let me put the color into it. Right here, this is the one. 50, chapter 50, verse 8, it is saying Joseph, his brothers, and his father's house. So there were three. Joseph, one, brothers, two, and the father's house was three. So the father's house, Jacob's house, entered the, the picture towards the end of the book of Genesis. And as a matter of fact, it is a point to realize that we don't see it so easy because when we read the text in the synagogue, there is one section that we read, and that section ends with, and Israel settled in Egypt, and they multiplied, etc. And the next verse is already the reading for the following, and it says, and Jacob lived. So now we see the split between Israel and Jacob. Israel was everyone besides Jacob, and Jacob was another one, another entity. And as a matter of fact, there are three verbs in regard to be in a land. One is to settle, which is lashevet. That will be the equivalent of being a citizen. So they settled in Egypt. Number two is to sojourn, lagur, which is actually, it is a foreigner that lives in the country with all the rights of being there, but not a citizen. And the last one is lishkon, which is usually translated as to dwell, but that would be to be and not to be at the same time. That's why it says that we should build a tabernacle, so God will dwell, lishkon, among the people, not in the tabernacle, but among the people. So, but you realize God is not going to be there. So it is to be and not to be at the same time. So, but the text is coming to tell us that Jacob did not want to settle in Egypt. He did not want to sojourn in Egypt. He did not want to dwell in Egypt. He lived in Egypt. He was rebelling against his sons that were settling in the land. He didn't want to settle in the land. He just lived there. It is a point to realize it. And therefore, we can see that once they are in Egypt, we see the existence of Jacob's house. And as a matter of fact, Jacob's house is being mentioned throughout the Tanakh, throughout the Bible, and there is only one point. Generally speaking, it is mentioned the house of Jacob with the remnants of Israel as two distinct. It is only in one time in Isaiah, all the rest they are two distinct entities, but only in chapter 46, verse 3, it says the house of Jacob who are called by the name of Israel. But all the rest, it is two distinct entities. And we see that it is all over in Isaiah, in Jeremiah, in Amos, in Obadiah, in Micah. There was the house of Jacob. So there were actually three components coming out of Egypt. The ones that were let go by the king, and they were expelled by the king at the same time. And that was the children of Israel, the house of Jacob, and the multitudes. Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach.